After a very thought-provoking talk about the role of our scholars by Sheikh Asim Qadi, Ustadh Khaled Abu Aishah, who is an Islamic scholar, a graduate from Al-Azhar University, a current master's student at Al-Madinah International University, Malaysia, an active khatib and dawah carrier in the city of Hamilton, Canada, who will now talk about the role model of our ummah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says في محكم التنزيل, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Indeed, in the Messenger of Allah, you have an excellent example. تفضل أستاذ.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. نسأل الله تعالى أن يوفقنا جميعا آمين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Jazakumullah khairan to the brothers for attending. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all for coming. I was a bit late. I put in the address. As you know, I'm coming from Canada, so I'm very dependent on the GPS. I went to the wrong place. I thought I got there early. So I was like, all right, I'm here early, but then it was an empty building. So alhamdulillah, I got back here on time. And alhamdulillah, I've been in this my second time in Chicago. Alhamdulillah, I came a couple months ago. It was so good, I came back again. Alhamdulillah, and it's very nice seeing the young brothers and of course sisters here today. Alhamdulillah, you know, that's a very big thing. It's Sunday, it's the middle of the day, and there's so many things to do. So the fact he took time to come out here is a very big deal. And alhamdulillah, it's very good. Anyways, I know I'm between you and the lunch, so I'm not gonna make it too long. I don't want to get beaten up. So inshallah, we make it quick, but inshallah, we wanna learn a couple lessons, inshallah. So, you know, this topic, actually, I usually get topics and I can produce very quickly like a result. So if we get the call Thursday night to do the khutbah Friday morning, I got it. But this topic, honestly, is a bit tough. So, you know, I blame Brother Haris here for making a tough topic, which is emulating the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's heavy, that's very heavy. So I've been trying to come up with content, you know, how can I talk about this topic? It's so heavy, so big. So I thought, you know what, like, let me focus on what I think would be, you know, something we could take away from it that is understandable and easy. And first is to understand that, you know, as we heard from the talk from Sheikh earlier about the role of the ulama. Yesterday we heard about talks about liberalism, Islamic's intellectual leadership, so on and so forth. And you know, one of the key points is that what you notice is that when we're talking about topics, we're talking about also the context, the time period we're living in, 2023, going into 2024, the situations that are happening around the world, all these things that are happening. So we live in a context. So if we don't understand the context, then you know, then whatever Islam we're learning, like, it doesn't apply to reality. And you know, things that don't apply to your reality, what you're going to do with it is, you know, put it up above the shelf, or, you know, get rid of it or give it to something else, somebody else. So we know that things have to matter to me for me to be interested in it. I need to get something out of it. And this topic of emulating the Prophet ﷺ is, you know, for all of us, we know, I have to follow Muhammad ﷺ. Is there anybody who would raise their hands to say, I will not follow Muhammad ﷺ? I don't want to be one of those guys, everybody raise their hands now. I'll say, raise your hands if you're not going to follow the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. No one's going to raise their hands, right? Because it's something built in us to follow Messenger of Allah ﷺ. But this context we live in, the time we live in, you know, we live in the West. You know, I live in Toronto. We produced, you know, as far as most people in Chicago know, the Raptors, they won somehow. And then there's Drake, this evil guy who's like spreading his garbage all across America. And you know, that's most people know about, you know, what Toronto's producing, but it's the same thing the West produces, which is be the man, you know, you're the individual, you, be authentic, you know, like, don't follow anybody. And you know, some of the statements I found on, you know, don't follow anybody Why should you emulate, copy somebody else? You're you, be the man, be unique, right? As a matter of fact, Steve Jobs, the Apple guy, he said, your time is limited, so don't waste living someone else's life. So he's basically saying, like, you should focus on being you. Don't follow somebody else's way. You're Muhammad, you're Ali, you're Abdullah. Be the best you and make your own path. And actually, there's a bit of you could say there's a way to understand like where that fits in with this. Another statement I found was Christopher Hitchens, who was this big atheist guy from the UK. He also spread his filth across the Europe and North America. So he said also the essence of the independent mind lies not in what it thinks, but how it thinks. So he's basically saying, like, you should be independent in your thinking. And he was a big atheist. So his idea of you following religion was, you're being foolish because you're not being you. You're actually just copying something else and you are forgetting yourself. So as Muslims, like, how do we understand this? Because it is true to a certain degree that, I should do things that make sense to me. And of course I need to follow the Prophet ﷺ. So how do I mesh these two things together? Because we know that at the end of the day, when we're talking about the bigger context, brothers and sisters, is that you're going to die, right? This is the real big context. That you and I, we're going to die. And subhanAllah, when we were in Canada, we heard about, the young brother, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mercy on him, he got, murdered by this animal, the young child, in I believe it was in Chicago, yes? I believe his name was Wadir. So, subhanAllah, and it's a young child, and we look at Palestine, we see the videos of young people dying, kids, children, women, men. So, it kind of gets us this idea that, subhanAllah, I'm going to die as well. So, whether I should follow myself or follow somebody else, the bigger question is that you're going to die, I'm going to die. So, with that in mind, if I'm going to die, I'm going to go to the next life. Steve Jobs amassed a lot of money, but at the end of the day, he died frail in a hospital, and he didn't take any of all that Apple wealth with him, right? He got replaced. This Christopher Hitchens guy also died too, with his atheism. He died, he met his end. So the reality is you and I are going to die as well. So this is where it makes it very important for us, that the fact that I'm going to die and I'm going to have to go to the next world, which I don't know exactly, like most people, human beings don't know what's happening in the next world unless they get guidance. What is it that I should be doing? And this is basically in Arabic called the ba'ath, the reason for you to do something. So when we talk about the following messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what is the reason why we should emulate him? And then, this is basically, where we start off. And one of the key things is that we understand that many of us, when we learn about the Prophet ﷺ, we learn a few stories. And usually what it revolves around is, Rasulullah was so kind. He helped some lady lift her bags. Rasulullah was so nice. Even Abu Lahab and his wife would throw stuff on his porch and he would he'd still be a good neighbor to them. So we really learn about like some snippets of the Prophet ﷺ. He did this, he did that, he was like this and that. But is that all of it, right? Is that all of it, right? And number two is that, we understand that in order to understand the Quran, we need to learn about the Rasul's life as well, because this book was revealed to him, right? So in terms of why we should follow the Prophet ﷺ, what is the reason why? And the main reason is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He actually made it the reason that if you love Allah Azza wa Jal, then you have to follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah says in the Quran, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ. That if you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then follow me. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying to the people, فَاتَّبِعُونِي, follow me. Right? So you loving the creator of the universe, the one who created you, the one who sustains you, the one you will meet after you die. If you love that creator and you want to be close to that creator, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in the Quran that you must follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number two, Allah, the brother recited, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرِ وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. That indeed in Muhammad ﷺ is uswatun hasana. It is the best example to who hopes for Allah and the Day of Judgment. And raja means to hope for something that is going to happen. And this is basically the reasoning Allah has given us, that you loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hoping to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also waiting for the Day of Judgment. These are the reasons why we need to follow the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And before that, we have this intellectual question, is the West telling us the truth? Are they telling us the truth? When they say be you, be authentic, are they actually being authentic? There's those funny memes, right? Like you see those pictures like, I'm so unique, and the guy has like red hair and like, all weird type of clothes and all that. But it's like 50, like 500 of those same people, right? So are you actually being unique, right? You go to this clothing store to be, like a punk rocker or like some rapper type of guy. Are you being unique, or are you actually, is it a big lie where there is actually no uniqueness? As a matter of fact, they create people that are going to copy themselves. So it's actually a false truth that they're giving you. That it's a falsehood. They say they don't copy anybody, but actually, when you really look at them, they're copying whatever's out there as well. Isn't that the fact? And they're imitating what is presented to them. So they could say they're not following somebody else, but in reality, they are following somebody else. And the reality is, every human being, at a certain level, is copying something else. Now, the question is that when it comes to copying something else, who should you copy? And this is where, as Muslims, what we realize is that when we're copying Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in what way are we copying him? And this is a very interesting discussion, and this is where Brother Harris put me in the, put a tough one on me, because this topic of at-ta'assi of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the scholars, when they talk about it, what they do talk about is that they say, what things should you follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in? Right? Because, for example, some of us are wearing the Arabic dress. I'm from Bangladesh. They don't usually wear this. They wear the Bengali clothes. Some of the brothers from Yemen, mashallah, wear the Yemeni turban and all these things. And, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is narrated to wear clothes like this. Now, the question is that, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to ride a camel. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to ride horses. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, used to like certain foods. So are we supposed to follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in all these things as well? So these are certain questions that arise and the scholars talk about. So Rasulullah was also known as a Nabi al-Ummi. He was the unlettered prophet. So he did not know how to read and write. Are we to imitate him in that as well? So these are the questions we have. And what we find is that in general, the scholars divide in a few sections. They say there's certain things that Rasulullah did that was, we are to follow him in that. خُذُوا عَنِّي مَنَاسِكَكُمْ. Take from me your rituals. صَلُّوا كَمَا رَأَيْتُمُونِي أُصَلِّي. Pray as if you see me pray. So there's certain things that the Prophet ﷺ is telling us to follow him in. Then there's a second category of things which is exclusive to the Prophet ﷺ. These are things exclusive to him that no one else can imitate him in. And that are things such as wisal. Rasulullah used to fast day to day to day without a break. This was something exclusive to the Prophet ﷺ. Rasulullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him permission to marry more than 4 wives. This is something that was specific to the Prophet ﷺ. There's things which are specific to him, and no one is allowed to follow the Prophet ﷺ in those things. And then there's things, it's called al-af'al al-jibiliyah. Those things that Rasulullah did, how he was created, certain foods he liked, certain things he did, certain ways he moved, certain ways he sat. And this is where it's interesting, because some people, where there was a discussion on whether they should follow the Prophet ﷺ in that. And actually, Anas ibn Malik, he said that the Prophet ﷺ was given a dish with bread, meat, and some gourd. And gourd I had to search up, but it's a type of squash. So I believe some of the Iraqis, they eat some squash and whatnot in their dishes. And then he said a very interesting thing, that Rasulullah kana yuhibbu duba. They used to love this type of squash dish. And then he said, فَأَنَا. So then he said, I started liking that as well. I started wanting to have that dish as well. So you can see Anas ibn Malik, he's saying, I'm following Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in what he likes to eat. And then the one who is most known for this is Abdullah ibn Umar. Abdullah ibn Umar, in his seerah, in his, I was going through the book of Al-Dhahabi, Imam Al-Dhahabi, rahimahullah, where he talks about his whole life. And Abdullah bin Umar was the one that was so focused on following Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he would actually travel and walk into places, and people would be like, why are you walking in this place or that place? He would say that perhaps Rasulullah's foot touched this place, so I want to touch my foot in that place. And then he would say, like he would pray in specific places. And then he'd say, I praying there because I saw Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam praying there. And this obviously was, something that, he was very well known for. Like he was following Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam so much, to the point it says that Abdullah bin Umar was narrated that once people saw Abdullah bin Umar praying under a tree, and he would actually water that tree. And the reason why he would be watering that tree is because he saw Rasulullah praying under that tree, so he didn't want that tree to dry up. So he could follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in following and praying under that tree. So this basically was Abdullah bin Umar. But Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he says that this was basically something unique out of ashiddat al-hub, that Ibn Umar would do this in terms of his following the Prophet ﷺ. However, he said that, but this was not commanded. What is commanded is what Rasulullah commanded from the awamir, and from what he said, the nawahi, from what he said not to follow. So what we understand is that the Prophet ﷺ is that he has unique things he liked, and it's for the believer to know about what Muhammad ﷺ loved, so that we can love Rasulullah ﷺ. Because from the place where we love somebody, we want to know everything about them. So this is how the Sahaba were. However, this is basically where the important topic comes up. So then what should we follow the Prophet ﷺ in? Because now we know there's the commands and prohibitions, and then there's the things it's only for him, and then there's things which are certain things he liked in his time. So when it comes to Allah telling us to follow Muhammad ﷺ, what should we really follow him in? And this is basically where I come to the crux of the matter, which is what we need to follow Muhammad ﷺ in reality is the commands and prohibitions is definitely there. But what the real important thing is following Muhammad ﷺ in his vision. How he viewed things. And this is exclusive said in Yusuf. قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ. This is my path. I call to Allah upon vision. Basira. Basira means, basara means eyes. So Allah is telling the Prophet ﷺ to say to follow Muhammad ﷺ in his vision and his mission. And this is a very important point, which our Shaykh just mentioned. The ulama, warathatul anbiya, the inheritors of the Prophet. And one of the key things is inheriting the vision of Muhammad ﷺ. Inheriting how he viewed things. Because the commands and prohibitions are there, but what's underlying that? What's the thing that the commands are sitting on is his vision. And the very important point is that even the call La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So when we say we follow Muhammad ﷺ, we're imitating him, following him, because this mission of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah that Muhammad ﷺ had is the same mission that me and you, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, the same mission that we have. When we see the martyrs die in Al-Ghazah, what do we see them do right before they die? They say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. And the ulama, they say that, subhanAllah, the way La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah is even said, it's said that it doesn't have any of the difficult letters that you need to pronounce that is hard to say, except with like saying it in a very specific way, like the letter Dad or Ta. La ilaha illallah just comes very easily to the tongue. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, put it there so that we say it right before we die. And it's easy to say, because this is the words that are connected to the heart of the believer. And this mission of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah is very important for us because it has two aspects, which is nafy wa ithbat. First, when you say La ilaha illallah, we need to realize this is the mission and vision of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when we negate all uluhiyya from everything, this is the first thing we need to do. And this is where Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was an Arab. We follow him in Arabic language because we want to understand his mission. So that's one thing we should do, is learn the Arabic language in a very detailed way. Because La ilaha illallah, it's actually, there's two types of La. There's one is La laysa and one La which is La nafiya lil jins. So the one is just saying there's none. So if somebody asks you, there's somebody in the room, and you say, no, there's nobody in the room. ليس فيه لا رجل فيها. That means basically there's no one in it, but you could say, but there's two people. There's nobody in the room. There's not one person in the room, but there's two people. But rajulan. But la ilaha illallah is negating all existence of any creator, anything that has the characteristics of creation, anything of the character of being a creator, anything that has the characteristics of being a lawgiver, anything that has the characteristics of something you submit to, anything that has the characteristics that you feel low towards, all of that is in the concept of ilah. And this is basically when the Rasulullah said la ilaha in Arabic, this is where we study. When you negate the category, la ilaha illallah, you cannot add something after that. It has to be only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is when we understand that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he came to a society that was worshipping idols, he basically, when he said la ilaha, those Quraysh, they were bad, some of them were real bad dudes, but they knew Arabic very well. They knew la ilaha negates, takes away uluhiyya from their idols, takes away uluhiyya from their false societal rules and laws, their tribal rules and laws. They can't make the rules and laws. Their desires, all of that power of legislation is taken away when you say la ilaha. And that's why he said, Abu Jahl, when he said, Rasulullah said, I will teach you a word, if you learn it, you will rule the Arab and you will rule the Ajam, the non-Arabs. He said, a one word, I'll give you 10 words. And the Rasulullah said, it's la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. He said anything except that. SubhanAllah, this is the Abu Jahl, and he could have been a great companion had he chose, but he chose the path of the devil, and he died a kafir. So this is basically first thing. The mission and vision of Rasulullah is to take away God-like qualities from all existing things. And in today's time, the context we live in, everybody has no problem with God. They have in God we trust in the dollar, yeah? But the reality is that they do take legislators. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's the exclusive legislator. He's the only one that's allowed to give the rules and the laws. He's the only one that's allowed to give you halal and haram. Allah said in the Quran, have you seen what Allah has revealed? فَجَعَلْتُم مِّنْهُ حَرَامًا وَحَلَالًا اللَّهُ أَذِنَ لَكُمْ عَمَّ عَلَى اللَّهِ تَفْتَرُونَ. That have you seen what Allah has revealed from you from the heavens and the earth? فَجَعَلْتُم مِّنْهُ حَرَامًا وَحَلَالًا. And you make halal and haram from that. اللَّهُ أَذِنَ لَكُمْ. Did Allah permit you to do that? أَمَّ عَلَى اللَّهِ تَفْتَرُونَ. Or do you lie upon Allah? So Allah is saying, I am the one who gives halal and haram. No other human beings, no other legislators, no other person can make a rule and law except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is basically the vision of the Muslim, that I have the mission of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to make kalimatullahi al-ulya, to make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's word, la ilaha illallah, the highest, wa kalimatul ladhina kafaru sufla, and to make the word of the disbelievers the lowest. And that could be the time of Quraysh, that irfa' hubal, raise the idol of hubal or lat. Or today, it could be, we're going to go to the UN to make the rules and the laws, or the International Court of Justice to make the laws, or the Supreme Court to make the laws, or the US Congress to make the laws, or we're going to go to Elon Musk to make the laws. Forget all those guys. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who's the one who's the ilah, He's the one who makes the laws. So I got a 15-minute reminder here, so it's the last quarter. It should be 12. So then what we need to understand is that's the vision. Now, when you have this vision, you're going to be compromised. People are going to try to make you compromise. And this is the second aspect of emulating Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is you do not compromise. You do not compromise. Sheikh mentioned previously, Sayyid Qutb rahmallah, actually had a statement from Sayyid Qutb about not compromising. And he didn't compromise. He said, the finger that bear witnesses la ilaha illallah is the finger that's not going to write an apology letter to the president of his time, that he's going to say sorry. So he said, no, this finger bear witness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the legislator, is not going to say, I'm sorry for calling to Islam. He said, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was presented to compromise. They said, Ya Rasulullah, no, they didn't say Rasulullah. They said, oh Muhammad, we will worship Allah for 1 year. You worship our idols for a day. How about that? It's a good deal, you know? It's a good deal. You know what, that show Shark Tank? And there's, I don't know if, yeah, you guys have it here. And there's like, oh, but you got to take that deal, right? Why won't you take that deal? It's a good deal. 1 year to 1 day, what's the problem? But Rasulullah was told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that if you even, وَإِن كَادُوا, that they're trying to put fitna to you, لِيَفْتِنُونَكَ عَنِ الَّذِي أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ لِتَفْتَرِ عَلَيْنَا غَيْرَهُ إِذَا لَاتَّخَذُوكَ خَلِيلًا. If you made some changes in the deen, they will take you as a friend. They'll invite you to the DNC, they'll invite you to the RNC, they'll invite you to their shows, they'll invite you to all these places. They invite you to eat dinner at the White House, right? I don't know if they do it still. But probably the food not halal, I won't go there still. But they invite you all these dinners, you know what I mean? And it'll take you as a Khalid, they'll take you as a best friend. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْلَا أَن ثَبَّتْنَاكَ لَقَدْ كِدْتَ تَرْكَنُ إِلَيْهِمْ شَيْئًا قَلِيلًا. That if I don't strengthen you on Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning your vision, emulating you means to strengthen and focus on your mission. Do not swerve this way or that way. And that's where Sayyid Qutb rahimahullah wrote, بِالْحُلُولِ الْوَسَطِ الَّذِي يُغْرُونَهُمْ بِهَا. That they were trying to make Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam do a compromise deal. And this is what Brother Jake talked about, the secular liberal ideology. They want to make a compromise with anything. They'll make a deal with anything. They have their value is we're going to just we can change up anything. You know, we put this flag or that flag, whatever flag. But hey, as long as you're okay with compromising, we're okay with you. So when we as a Muslim come and saying the Messenger of Allah said no compromise, there's no compromise with this, they'll say, oh, that's not nice. How can you not compromise? Let's meet in the middle of the road. But the road of Tawheed and the road of La ilaha illallah and the road of evil, the road of filth cannot meet with each other. It's two different roads. They don't cross each other. So this is basically an important point. Now finally, few things. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam following him, how do we do that in today's reality? So I'll just finish on this inshallah, is that number one, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we need to have this characteristics. Understand his vision, his mission, making Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the most highest. Number two, not compromising on the deen. Number three, we need to make sure we're carrying Islam in us. When we emulate Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we study how he behaved. We understand how he talked to people, how he debated with people. You know, this Piers Morgan, he's inviting all these people on the show, trying to make fun of them, right? But one of the things is that Rasulullah, even when he's debating his opponent, he would say, are you finished speaking? أَفَرَغْتَ يَا أَبَا وَلِيدٍ. They'd say, yeah, I'm done. And they would be preaching like, if you want women, we'll give you women. If you want money, we'll give you money, all these things. Rasulullah says, are you done? So, Rasulullah is akhlaq, how he talked to people, how he debated with people. We need to follow Muhammad in that, and how he dealt with his family, how he dealt with his kids, how he dealt with his friends. All of these things we emulate Muhammad in. So this is another aspect. And finally, this is a key aspect, Muhammad following him and having the vision of leadership. Muhammad we see what happened in Gaza. SubhanAllah, we see the calls of the ummah to the rulers. Unfortunately, they haven't answered. They stopped calling the rulers. Forget these guys. They are deaf and dumb and blind. They're not listening. But they call the ummah, who's going to help us? Who's going to come and assist us? Who's going to help, with this border that the blockade the Egyptian state has put on the people of Gaza? They say, who's going to come and support us while we're being bombed by the Zionist entity? Who's going to come and help us? Rasulullah had a similar situation. Actually, Muhammad when he was the ruler in Medina, one time there was a contract between these two tribes called Banu Khuza'a and Banu Bakr. Rasulullah made a contract with Quraysh saying that, we're going to have this treaty, sulh, that we're not going to fight for 10 years. So then there's two tribes underneath them. Banu Bakr was with Quraysh and Banu Khuza'a was with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So then what happened is Banu Bakr came and then they did what the Zionists do. They broke their contract. And then they killed people while they were praying and while they were making sujood. And Allah subhanahu is narrated in the seerah that Amr ibn Salam came to Prophet sallallahu and said, Ya Rabbi, inni nashidu Muhammadan hilfa abina wa abi atlada. So then he said, oh, Muhammad sallallahu I'm calling on you. I'm basically asking you for help. And you had contract with us and with our forefathers. Inna Qurayshan akhlaful maw'ida wa naqadu mithaqa al-mu'akkada. That Quraysh came and broke the contract. They came and broke the contract. And then he said, وَقَتَلُونَا رُكَّعًا وَسُجَّدًا. And they killed us while we're making ruku' and sujood. And this is how the kufr, millatul wahida. They will choose the places to kill Muslims and attack Muslims when they're vulnerable. And we see the same thing today with the Zionist entity. So then what happened is he asked Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Fansur, help us." What was the response of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, once he heard that Quraysh broke the rules and they broke the contract. You know, Muhammad, when you emulate Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he talked about Salah ad-Din, when he talked about Umar, when he talked about these great leaders, they were only imitating Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the fact. They're not following their own road. They were following Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "La nasarani Allahu ta'ala illam ansur Banu Ka'b." That may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not give me victory unless I give Banu Ka'b victory. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, may Allah not give me victory until I give victory to these people. This is the leadership quality of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When we emulate Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is what we're looking for. In conclusion, brothers and sisters, is that we need to build an ummah with purpose, as the title of the conference is, and that means we need to emulate Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So a few things. We need to have an established relationship with the Quran. We need to reading the Quran, understanding the language of the Quran, memorizing the Quran, reading the Quran, understanding its meanings, gathering with the brothers to understand that. Number two, we need to study the seerah, the life of the Prophet ﷺ from beginning to the end, have gatherings in this very masjid on this life of the Prophet ﷺ, and you'll see it affects you and you will know what you need to emulate. And finally, we need to sit with the brothers and sisters who have the vision of Muhammad ﷺ. Not just to build the masjid, alhamdulillah, the masjid is very nice, mashallah, right? But not just to build the masjid, but to build that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kalimah is the highest across the globe. This is what we need to do, bi'idhnillah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us have the vision and the mission of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in al-firdaus al-a'la wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Jazakumullah khairan. Takbir!
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Jazakallah.
What should be my response?
Jazakumullah khairan. So the question is, you follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why don't you follow, what about the other prophets and the other scriptures? As I was coming here, I was listening to Sheikh Muhammad al-Didu, one of the, mashallah, great ulama from Mauritania, and he said, remind the hadith, and he said, Ma wasa'a Musa illa taba'uni, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the hadith, that if Musa alayhi salam was alive, or kama qal, that he would have to follow me. This is what Rasulullah is saying, is that if Musa alayhi salam, the messenger, who is the great messenger of Allah, he was alive, he would have no choice but to follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah said in the Quran, that when he described the Quran, it says muhaiminan alayh, that the Quran is the final message that overrides all other messages before. And this is basically what we need to understand, is that Islam is an operating system. You know, you guys have operating systems. It cannot be installed with another operating system. You have to delete and reconfigure, remove what was there before, and Islam is a new operating system. And things have to be installed on the Islamic operating system. So previous messages, they have a, you know, we don't know what is the truth in it, what is not true in it. There's some truths in it, you know, some of the things that's been preserved. But these scriptures, if we're going to look into it, we'll find very strange things. I don't even want to mention some of the things about the prophets, but, you know, some of the things they write is like very horrible. A'udhu billah. They say, you know, Harun alayhi salam, when Musa alayhi salam left to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to meet him, get the the tablets, that Harun alayhi salam was worshipping the golden calf with the people. A'udhu billah, that's a prophet worshipping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's so many other things in these other scriptures that we cannot trust. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the final messenger. As the brother was mentioning about the wall, about the ummah being like a brick, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in a hadith that I am the final brick from amongst the wall of prophethood. And whatever Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with, it completes the picture. And we know what is from the truth. Whatever Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam confirmed is from the truth of those previous prophets. And whatever he did not confirm, then we don't take those things. So this is basically where we need to tell the people, the non-Muslims, that you need to look at Muhammad SAW as the final messenger, and that what he tells us about Allah and the messenger and the Quran, whatever it speaks about these messengers, and there's so much about the prophets and messengers in the Quran. Entire chapters, Surah Maryam, Surah Hud, so many things talking about all these messengers, but they only will tell you the truth about these messengers, not the lies. What we do know is those books, Allah says, يحرفون الكتاب عن that they did tahrif of the kitab عن مواضع, that they changed the words, they changed their books previously. So how do we know what has been changed and what hasn't been changed? Okay. Okay, so we'll start at the top. Which part of the life of the Prophet ﷺ we have to follow today to bring unity and dignity back to the Ummah after all the atrocities, divisions and killing? Yeah, this is a good question. I mean, the thing is that, Rasulullah ﷺ, as the Shaykh mentioned earlier, Rasulullah said that Rasulullah ﷺ, the messengers leave inheritance, warathatul anbiya. And what you know in inheritance is that when somebody passes away, he'll give this to this person, give this to that person, and so it'll be divided amongst the family. So when Rasulullah did pass away, what he did is he left the message of Islam inherited across the entire generation of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. And we have inherited from that generation to the generation above till we reach Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what is it that we need to follow today is very key, is that, whether in Canada, whether it be in America, whether it be in the UK, whether it be in Palestine, there is one big need, which is that in order to bring back the dignity of the Ummah, first we need to understand our vision as an Ummah, our mission as an Ummah, right? I mean, if for example, the Zionists stop tomorrow, and they stop their crimes on the Ummah in Gaza, we would just say, okay, now it's over, there's peace or whatever, right? Is that it? Rather, the answer is no. We will not stop until we will bring back the message of Islam completely. When we remove all of the foreign elements from the colonialist powers, the secularism, the garbage musicians that are in the West, they go to Saudi Arabia to perform. A'udhu billah. These guys are the lowest of the lows. Men and women, they're performing in the Muslim. A'udhu billah. So we see that we need to start with the intellectual leadership of Islam. The fact, mashallah, there's young brothers and sisters here, it shows that our young ummah is interested in Islam. They like Islam. They find power in Islam. So we need to carry this message, identify the right ideas that the Ummah has, and the ideas that need work, and work together to bring, so that we can move forward, inshallah. Ala inna nasallahi qareeb. And the victory of Allah is close, inshallah.
Take a question from the audience.
So I was thinking that what needs the youth when I look into the deen, what I observed is that there are multiple groups who have divided the character and lifestyle, follow and preach those certain things. For example, I've seen two main categories. One of the categories is that people who are so involved in tazkiyah and so many, to be honest with you, extreme that fabricated narrations who directly contradict the Quran and Sunnah and the lifestyle of Prophet, but they still go with that, and they are on a different zone totally within their head. And there is the other extreme, which is so much focused upon. They want to emphasize deen on the external stuff so much so that they have lost the tolerance and ability towards their little misguided brothers as well. That much of conscience I have seen and I have observed. So I just have two questions. What advice would you give to the youth that how do we behave in this scenario when we start to go into the deen, and what to way to go through? And there are second questions that do we compromise our deen
Yeah, that's a good question. So the first question is ultimately, people looking at the Prophet ﷺ in only one angle, and that's it. And this is basically where we need to be aware. Like everybody here should spend time learning about the Prophet ﷺ to the beginning till the end of his life. And that means you could read books, you could listen to lecture series. There's good lecture series all across. But we need to really learn about the nature of the message. What it is at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, in all these divisions, spirituality, and then there's this and that, this wasn't there. It was just one thing. It's just one thing. The deen is Islam. It has a spiritual aspect. It has a intellectual aspect. It has intellectual, spiritual. These are two broad categories, and we as Muslims need to work on both of that. We can't just be focused on one side and neglect the other. So if we read the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, yes, Rasulullah spent time alone in the cave Ghar Hira. He spent time there before being a messenger. So that means if you want to take time out and go to, is there some nice wilderness or forest place here? To go for a walk or take a couple of days off and think about the creation around you. That is part of obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says in the Quran, those who think about the universe around them and ponder upon things, this is fine. But if you're just going to make all of Islam visiting the forests and thinking about the creation, and that's all of Islam, then who's going to make sure that there's Jummah at the masjid? Who's going to make sure that there's zakat being delivered? Who's going to make sure all of these things? Who's going to take care of these things? So that's why we need to be fair, but we need to spend our time to understand something correctly. If you understand it correctly, if somebody's presenting one side too much and neglecting another, we can mention it. Rasulullah, he was very spiritual, but at the same time, Rasulullah was very political. As a matter of fact, the story about him, putting the black stone to the Kaaba before the messenger is a very political act. If he didn't do that, then there would have been a civil war in all of Mecca. But he did that by Allah's permission, and he brought calm. So he understood the reality around him. Number two, in terms of compromise, the thing is, the struggle against compromise, it won't stop. It is something we'll be completely we'll be facing for a long time. Now we just need to understand what we can compromise on, what we cannot compromise on. If you're married, you need to compromise on the things that you're allowed to compromise in. On the halal things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you, that you can maybe have an agreement with and go forward. So at your work, you can compromise on those allowable things. But if somebody says, well, you need to compromise praying Friday prayers, otherwise you can't work here, that's something I can't compromise. Everybody should have a red line. Red line, they talk about the red line. There's certain things I don't compromise on. And that means we need to know. One of my friends, he called me up, and I didn't pick up his phone call. So then I called him back and like, hey, brother, what'd you call me about? He said, I was going to ask you whether I can order pork pizza for my work. They wanted me to get it. And then I was like, no, that's not allowed. You can't be ordering and picking up a pepperoni pizza. And he's like, oh, I didn't know. So then I said, well, next time, you should know that as a Muslim, you cannot be ordering pork, you cannot be ordering alcohol. That's something you can't do. So next time, inshallah, it's like, this is a red line. I'm not going to order this anymore. But if you want me to do something else at work, sure, I'll do it. So that's why we need to know where our red lines are, inshallah. The question is, where is your hat from and where can I get it? This hat, honestly, if I tell you, then you're going to copy my style. So no. No, okay. Actually, my brother bought it for me. He's from Egypt, mashallah. So he got it. He sent it to me, mashallah. So yeah, you can get it from Egypt, or I don't know. You guys have so many Arabic stores here. But why would you want to wear this? You have the Yemeni turban. That one looks nice. That one's probably better. So, inshallah, I'll leave that. Okay. So you gave an example of what Muhammad did when he was in power, but today we aren't. What did he do when people were getting killed before he came into power? So this is a very good question. And this is basically, one thing is this, right? Like, when we make, in Arabic it's called qiyas. Qiyas means analogy. Right? There's a general meaning of qiyas and there's a technical meaning of qiyas, which is used by ulama in extracting rules. But in terms of an analogy, Rasulullah ﷺ, he saw Sumayya radiallahu anha and her husband Yasir radiallahu anhu. They were getting murdered in public, and the reason why, they had no tribe to protect them. Everybody was watching it. Rasulullah ﷺ was watching it. The Sahaba were watching it. Their brothers and sisters are in the middle of Mecca and they're getting questioned and they're going to get murdered. What did Rasulullah say? Sabran ya ala Yasir fa inna maw'idakum al-Jannah. Have patience, family of Yasir, for indeed your abode is Jannah. And then they were killed, shuhada. And Rasulullah, he couldn't intervene. Right? Now, could he have, got a bow and arrow and done something? Allahu A'lam. But what we do know is that if he could do something, he would. But he couldn't. Right? So similarly, what we know is today, when we see our brothers and sisters getting massacred in Gaza, it's horrible. SubhanAllah, we see the videos, we see what's happening, and alhamdulillah, the only good thing out of it is that we're all aware of it. This is one very important thing, is that we are aware of it, what's happening. But SubhanAllah, the reality is that we as an ummah, when we look at this problem, we see Rasulullah, he couldn't deal with Sumayya and Yasir anhuma at that point. But Rasulullah, he worked, he made da'wah, he found people who are willing to accept Islam not just as a spiritual religion, but as a message, as a new way forward, a constitution to move forward. They took Islam, they're willing to die for Islam, live for Islam, protect Islam, and the one who did that, Abu Jahl, he was killed in the Battle of Badr. So Rasulullah, when was he able to get the revenge? Was when he established a state, when he had power and authority. Zionists today, the real IDF is not, the IDF soldier. The real IDF is Sisi. The real IDF is Ibn Salman. The real IDF are those bordering countries from the Muslim nations protecting them. They're the defense force. And the proof of that is there's Muslims trying to go across the border, even, some brother just with whatever he has, maybe a stick, and he will be shot at by the Jordanian border forces, by the Egyptian border forces. So he will be prevented by those. So they are actually the IDF. They are the ones protecting that entity. And ultimately what it is that when we look at Rasulullah, he worked, established his own authority. And this is what we need to look for, is that these nation states created by the colonialists, why do we have them? Why is that there? What are these flags about? What are these constitutions about? They have nothing to do with Islam. So we need to, inshallah, get back Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's word, the highest, and then, inshallah, free Al-Aqsa and the people of Gaza, inshallah.
One of the couple of things that I was going to ask, you talked about red lines, you talked about red lines, you talked about not compromising, but as an individual, a lot of people things, a lot of pushback, and they feel alone in there. And you mentioned just summer was one of the things, but as I told you, on an individual level, how does
Allah says in the Quran, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Allah says, so end of Surah Al-Ankabut, those who strive in our cause will guide them our paths. So we need to realize that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's not going to make it easy. That's why it's called striving. It's going to be difficult. You're going to lose friends. You might lose money. People lose their families. People lose everything. People lose their health. People lose their limbs. People lose their eyes. Islam, when Allah tests, we don't know what is the extent of that test. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a test we can handle, not something that is beyond our capability. What it is that, at the end of the day, we need each other. We need to strengthen each other by being with each other. When you're alone, you know, the worst place in prison is solitary confinement. The reason why is because you're alone. When you are with people, especially believers who are with you, Allah said in the Quran to Rasulullah that kun be with the believers. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullaha wa kunu ma'as sadiqin. O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah and be with the sadiqin. Be with those who are trustworthy, truthful. Because when you're alone, you're going to have a difficult time. But if you have brothers with you, you know, the men of the ummah, right? The sisters of the ummah as well, the sisters listening. If you have people strengthening you, helping you out, giving you that word, you know what, brother? You can take it. Don't worry about it. I got you. We need to strengthen each other. Islam is not an individualistic deen. You don't say iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. You say iyyaka na'budu with the noon al-jama'. We worship you alone and we seek help from you. So it's a collective deen. So we need to, you know, realize that you're not alone. Inshallah, there's a whole ummah that's struggling with you, and your brothers and sisters in your locality. If you're having troubles, you join with them, you talk to them, you let them know what's happening, you call them up. Hey, I'm having trouble here. Can you help me out? Give me some advice. And then if you're being called, don't hang up on them. Pick up that phone call. Like, okay, brother, how can I help you out? Let me know what I can do. And maybe it's just you give them a good word. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you strength, brother or sister. You can deal with it. And that could be all that's needed, inshallah.
Three questions on the website. But first, we go pray also.
The computer got locked. My Face ID doesn't work. Okay. I'll take that. You tell me. Oh, okay. I know. You gotta be careful, huh? So, should I answer any of them or just choose whichever one? Oh, okay. So, is voting a form of compromise? And you know what? This voting thing, at the end of the day, you know, you guys seen the Abandon Biden campaign? It's like a refund you want at Walmart and the day has passed. You know, it's been 30 days plus, and they won't take back your refund. Yeah. So yeah, I want to abandon Biden. I want to abandon Trudeau. But I never even purchased his product in the first place. That guy's, you know. But those who did vote, you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, you know, like the question I always had was this. You know, suppose you vote somebody, and that guy is amazing. That guy you voted, he's building masjids. He is, he's helping poor people. He's doing all these great things. You would say, yes, I should get a reward from that guy for the good things he's doing, right? Because you put this guy in charge. He's doing all these amazing things. So you should get a reward. Now, the funny thing is this. I say, if you vote somebody and he's doing bad things, then you are free from all the crimes he's doing? Like, I don't get it, you know what I mean? Because you're going to take the reward, but you're not going to take the crimes? You know, it doesn't make sense to me, to be honest. So in terms of voting as a form of compromise, at the end of the day, like the reality is that voting, as a general term, Islam has voting, communism, like the voting system is not exclusive to the secular democracy. For voting, you know, some of the ulama they mentioned that, you know, electing is allowed in Islam, and the Sahaba, they elected the rulers. What we're talking about is voting in a democratic, un-Islamic system. And the reality is that this system, when you do vote in it, the ulama, and there's a good video of Brother Mazen that goes, it's 45 minutes or so, where it goes through all the arguments for voting. And the main one is that it's the lesser of two evils, right? But to be honest, what you do is you accept the premise it is haram aslan. It is haram, but you're doing it. It's like pork. You know, if you're hungry, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows, if you're about to die, not just hungry, if you're about to die, then you can, you know, eat a bite of pork or something like that to keep yourself alive. So you understand it's a haram, but you're getting a permission to do that haram in order to survive. This is allowed in Islam. Now, when you're voting, if you're saying it's like, I'm going to put someone in charge, you know, what unfortunately happens is it is a form of compromise today, because what it is you are compromising the concept that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only allows you to appoint people to rule by Islam. You cannot appoint somebody, if I want to sell my car, I have to make sure I tell that person to sell my car according to what Islam says. He cannot sell my car in a way that's haram. I'll be held responsible. Voting, you're collecting somebody to legislate on your behalf. He's going to make laws on your behalf. So of course it's a form of compromise, right? And we should realize that it's a compromise that doesn't bring any good. If you eat that pork, maybe you can make tawbah, and then at least you're alive for that day, and Allah has allowed it. This voting, people are trying to abandon Biden, trying to get a refund, because of how violent the Zionist occupation has been and the fact that Biden has supported it. So, those who promoted voting themselves are running away from voting, right? Vote for me.
My question here, how we can revive this area in the families? Because now the role model for all families, either Ronaldo or Muhammad Salah, how I can take our youth is Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam.
Jazakumullah khairan, Shaykhana, mashallah. Yeah, and I think this is where our young brothers and sisters is that, you're going to get married, inshallah, you're going to have a family and all these things. And one of the things is that, look at every single celebrity, right, who's not following Islam. Their family life is horrible, right? I was in Philadelphia a year ago, and Will Smith is like, oh yeah, Will Smith, so great, blah, blah, blah. He's a hero in America, right? That guy's family life is horrible. It's like the crazy, if you read, the more you find out about him, and this is a golden rule, one of the ulama mentioned, the more you find out about the reality of the lives of these celebrities who are not practicing Islam, the more you'll hate them. When you find out how disgusting their life is. On the opposite hand, the more you find out about Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his life, the details, the more you love him. So this is a golden standard we have. And at the end of the day, when it comes to families that you want to get married, Rasulullah encouraged the shabab to get married. He says, "Man istata'ta minkum al-ba' falyatazawwaj." That if you're able to, you should get married. The reason why is when you get married, you learn so much about the deen. You learn about responsibility. A lot of people are not married. You could just be in the home playing video games for the next 4 days, and no one's gonna bother you. When you're married, you're gonna get bothered. The wife's gonna be like, "What's going on? Like, what are you doing? You can't just be playing video games all day." So you gotta get up and do stuff, even if you don't want to. You gotta do stuff. You have to be a man about it. Otherwise, who's gonna stay with you if all you do is not fulfilling your obligations? So Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gives us a great example on how to be the best example. And again, we all have work to do. My wife is probably listening to this lecture, and you're probably saying, I don't do any of these things, right? But we all have work to do. We all have to improve. If you want to understand how to be a better man, you look at what the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did, what advices he gave, what the Quran says, what does the Quran say, and especially as for our sisters as well, they need to understand what the Islam says about how to be a good woman, how to be, what you should be looking to achieve, right? These are very important things. We have a source of reference. Because what it is that if you don't have a common source of reference, there's going to be disputes. Okay, are we doing on time? Okay, I know I'm between you and the food, so I'll take one more question. Is that okay? Okay, I'll make it quick, inshallah. Sorry. If you have passions, but they're not exactly in the footsteps of the Prophet, should you drop them or follow them in secret while not making a profit? So now I'm questioning, there's prophet and then there's prophet with a F-I-T and a P-H-E-T. We'll just answer the main question. At the end of the day, listen, the companions had different skill sets. They're so different, right? And what it is that your passion, it can, inshallah, aid Islam. It can help Islam. One of the companions, Salama ibn Aqwa, he was a long distance runner. He used to run like miles upon miles. And he aided Islam by running and finding the enemy. Different companions liked, Quran. Another companion liked Hadith. Other companions liked, battle, like Khalid bin Walid. So the point is this: like your passion, whether as long as it's a allowable passion, like mubah, something that's permissible, right? For example, you like, I don't know, like basketball, or you like hiking, or whatever it may be. As long as you're able to do it, and it's in Islam, there's 5 categories of actions. One is fard, which is obligation. If you do it, you get a reward. If you don't do it, you get a sin. The second is mustahab. If you do it, you get a reward. If you don't do it, you don't get a sin. The third is mubah, permitted. If you do it or don't do it, it holds the same value. And this could, maybe your passions, if it falls in here, then it's fine. And the third is makruh. If you do it, you don't get a sin. If you leave it, for the sake of Allah, you get a reward. And finally, haram is the last category, which is if you do it, you get a sin. If you don't do it, you get a reward. So if your passions fall in something like this, now you have to be careful. Like some passions, I know some brothers, they like to do like, wedding photography. But then they'll take a job, doing photography, and all of it is like, wedding where there's people not dressed properly. Or someone likes designing certain type of websites, but then it's mostly gambling companies want this website. So you got to look at what you're doing and see whether that passion in general will lead to halal things, or if that passion will lead you down a road which will be very problematic. And we need to be careful not to put ourselves in compromising situations. Sometimes you get a job or you do something, you're in like right at the line. You know what I mean? You're right at the line. If you go a little bit over, you're going to be in a big problem. Don't put yourself in fitna. Don't put yourself in a trial you can't handle. Because sooner or later, you may slip up. So it's best to avoid passions. And the word passion is basically, you have to think about it. So that's what my answer is for that.
But he sent the messenger. Obviously, as an example. And if we compare that to our dawah today, and dawah in general, it's obviously not enough just to have the correct ideas, but we must have correct people and personalities to be able to win the trust of the ummah. So, what would those people look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. And one of the key characteristics today we need to have and encourage the ummah to have is a characteristic Rasulullah was the master of, is al-raja. Is to have hope in change. But there's a difference between al-raja wa tamanni. And the ulama, they say al-raja is amal, hope, with actions. So you hope in something, but you do the actions, yatahaqqaq, that will bring into life your hope. While tamanni is to hope in something, but not do the actions required. So what it is this, Rasulullah, he had certain characteristics that are found with the Quran mentions. And we need to understand the Quran. That will basically give us strength on really making those characteristics firm in us, like not compromising, having sabr, speaking the truth, having raja, hoping in good, but also working towards it. And we need to make sure we are working with the ummah to, yes, there's difficulties, but we're not in despair. Despair in Islam is haram. We cannot be having despair, like, we're horrible, we're never going to succeed, we're a failure. This is haram. Right? Rasulullah in the hadith, Man qala halaka an-nas fahuwa ahlakuhum. Those who say people are destroyed, they are the most destroyed. And another hadith, Rasulullah said, Mathal ummati mathal al-matar. That the example of my ummah is the example like rain. La yudra awwalahu khayrun am akhar. it is not known whether the first part of the rain is good or the later part. This hadith is saying that there's khair in the ummah until the day of judgment. So what it is as Muslims, when we realize, man kana yarju Allah wal yawm al-akhir. At the end of the day, when you accept the fact you can die today, right? Then your vision is, okay, I might die today. And Hassan al-Basri, and I'll finish on this, he said that the way you should view life is to know that whatever happened before, amal madi faqad mada, that is gone. It's gone. Whatever happened before today, you made good things or bad things, is gone. Is not coming back. Wa ammal ghad, as for tomorrow, you're planning this, you put this in your calendar, 2028, 2029, 2030, I'm going to be a millionaire, I'll be living here, this is the car I'll have, this and that. Fa ammal ghada la'allahu la tudrik. You may not reach the future. وَلَكِنَ الْيَوْمِ يَبْنَ آدَمْ لَكَ الْيَوْمِ. But son of Adam, for you is today. فَعْمَلُ فِي. So work in this day. So what it is, brothers, is that we need to have this consistency and we need to have this energy. You might die today. Well, I might die today. Anytime you can die. So that should make you very energetic. There's like 5 seconds left. The ball's in your hand. You got to score. Right? You got to have that pressure on you, because it's true, there is pressure on you. And therefore, the main thing we need to have as Muslims, read the Quran, understand it, read the Sunnah, understand it, but most importantly, kun ma'al mu'mineen, be with the believers, so strengthen each other. Barakallahu feekum, jazakumullahu khairan, wa akhir da'wana, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen.
Takbir! Allahu Akbar! Takbir! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
الإسلام لنا دينا وجميع